Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with the Limp, and I am here with a special treat for you all. I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh my god, it's another game. You are covering so many right now. And I know. But this one just came in very recently, and I am jumping on it right now for you guys. One, because I'm excited about it. But two, it's coming to Kickstarter here soon from DVG Games, and it is by one of my favorite publishers. So I want to make sure I get these videos out early for you guys. And if you've watched any of my stuff before, you probably recognize what's sitting on the table in front of you now, but just in case you don't, this is Soldiers in Postmans Uniforms, Defense of the Polish Post Office in Danzig during the Second World War. It's being published by, or designed by David Thompson and published by DVG. So this is a prototype, very much prototype copy, so don't take the components as finalized, but I will say these components are very good quality for a prototype copy, so we are looking as prototype as possible. We're like right there on the cusp of being production quality. I'll touch on a few of those things here in a minute that aren't quite production quality. But like I said at the beginning, if you have watched any of my stuff before, you know I've covered games that look very similar to this. This is the third in his series of what I like to call goofy battles, right? He picks the most off-the-wall, outrageous things that happened in history and makes a game out of it. Stuff that most people don't even know about. First one being Pavlov's House. Second one was Castle Itter, which I always want to call Iter, and now the third one's going to be The Postman. The Pavlov's House was more of a grand strategic view of things. The Castle Itter was more of a tactical game, more of this aspect. And this one seems to be a cross between the two. It doesn't have the grand strategic element that Pavlov's House did, but it has a little bit more of the tower defense type gameplay that you saw in Pavlov's House. So it kind of combined certain aspects of each one of the games, which is neat in my opinion. Personally, so far, Castle Itter has been my favorite, but this one might be taking its place. We'll have to see. All right, so real quick historical background for you guys, for anyone who doesn't know. This involves the defense of the Polish post office that was under assault by the Germans at the very start of World War II. They pushed across, and I think they did like a false flag thing, right? And had Germans in Polish uniforms attack them to give them an excuse to come across the lines and attack the Polish territory. And the thing was, this used to be German territory until after World War I, and then it got taken from them. And they were still pissed off, so they did what Germans did and start shooting them. And in the story, the post office was attacked, and they had orders to hold out and hold the line as long as they could. And they withheld against attacks for the entirety of a day. I mean, post office workers, some trained personnel, not just a building full of trained warriors. It was people who were doing the best with what they had. And there were even non-combatants in the building as well that they were trying to protect, but they held out for the day, knocking back wave after wave of large attack until the Germans ended up pumping the building full of gasoline and setting it on fire, at which point the remaining defenders did surrender and give up the building. So in this, you're trying to hold out just like the Polish soldiers did. You're trying to hold out as long as you can and have as many survivors as you can. The big thing in this is you want to keep people alive. You don't want to have casualties, and you want to keep your morale up, because if your morale gets too low, then you automatically lose the game. So what I'm going to do for this little video series, we're going to go over the basics of how the game is going to be played, and then we'll play through a little bit of the game, let you see the first attack round and how that's all going to play out, and then show you how that's going to expand into the second and third attack round into the finish of the game. Now, as we're looking at the components, make sure you guys keep it in the back of your head. Prototype, all right? So not finalized, very close to it though. Your production copy should look very similar to what you see laid out in front of you, but there will be some differences some final touch-ups and stuff like that. All right, but this is effectively your post office, the building that you're trying to defend. So you're looking down on the post office here, and these areas are the avenues of approach that the Germans are going to take in trying to take over the building from you. They're trying to assault and get entry into the different entrances, which are going to color coordinate over into the inside of our building, which is over here. So as you're drawing your cards, which we'll touch on here in a little bit, it'll tell you where the units are going to be placed. Sometimes you'll roll, sometimes it'll be a specific spot that the unit goes to, just depending on what unit it is. And as you place down your units, they're going to continue to move forward, very similar to how a tower defense thing works. So as the first soldier comes in and then another one comes behind him in the same line, it's going to push things forward. Other lines might start pushing into it as well, and they'll start to fill up, at which point they'll hit these barricades and extra cards will get mixed into it. We'll show you guys those here in just a little bit as well. And when the barricades are taken out, that's when they gain entrance into the building and they'll start storming in. So they're going to push in from all of these different avenues. We've got red, white, blue, and orange. And like I said, all of these are nice and simplistic because the colors coordinate to where the units are going to be deployed, the enemy units, but they also coordinate to the line of sight. Because when you look over here at the building, you see how all the rooms in the building, this is the basement, this is the ground floor, and this is the upper floors. They are all color coordinated as well. So units who are in orange can attack enemies that are in orange. Units that are in blue can attack blue, white on white, red on red, and so on. So it's real easy to tell what the line of sight is going to be going back and forth, because you will have some support units that attack from outside. The normal soldiers that are pushing through, things that look like these counters here, SS riflemen, as they're pushing in, these guys aren't going to necessarily be attacking you as they're coming in. They're just trying to gain access to the building. But there are things like heavy machine guns that will get placed in these squares, and they will be shooting at the building and trying to disrupt your forces that are on the inside. So like I said, the big thing is you want to maintain your barricades as long as possible, your little white squares here. But eventually, no matter how good you are, you're not going to be able to hold back the overwhelming forces. And this is when you're going to be focused a lot more over here. This is also where you're going to be taking your own actions during your turn. You're going to have 4 moves and 4 actions signified by our move counters and our action counters that you will place on your units. Like I said, if you played Pavlov's House or Castle Itter, you will definitely hit the ground running when it comes to this. Quick peruse of the rules should be all you need to really understand the game. A lot of similar techniques are used in between all 3 of these. Now, when we look at the building here, like in the basement, you notice one of these is marked as an entrance. And when we look back over here, basement, entrance, bam, just like that. So if a unit were to come in here, they would be storming into this room. So all of these are individual rooms with defenders, these squares. Each one of these can hold 2 defenders, unless it's a bigger rectangle room, something like this one or this one here, they can hold 3 defenders. But those aren't the only rooms that you have. You notice we do have rooms over here. These are marked as the interior, and the interior is basically all this middle space. So stuff going on in the hallway in between these rooms. That's where these units are considered to be. So your units will be fighting in the rooms, in the interior of the rooms, and then in between the rooms as they're going up. Like I said, basement, ground floor, upper floors. Now your units themselves, you'll notice they have lots of numbers on them. These counters being prototype don't have the color border on them. They're either going to have a blue one, a orange one, a black one, or blackish gray one, or I think that's it. Actually, yeah, blue, white, orange, or I keep wanting to say red, but it's not red. Now, since these were cut off, what I did was paint the sides of some of the counters to help me remember which is which. So the white ones are the postal workers, and they don't have a whole lot of combat prowess. The top number up there in the upper right is their combat strengths, and that's mainly how many dice they're going to throw. That middle number, the one with the down arrow next to it, that's how much morale. So if Bella here gets killed, you lose 1 morale. You notice we got a lot of other postal workers. Most of them have 1 for their combat strength. We have other guys that are considered trained. So these are more of your generic soldiers. They're going to have an orange border around them. You see I did paint one side of these orange to help me remember which was which. So Plazinski here, I hope I said that right. He's going to be rolling 2 dice. And then we have some like these that I left black. These are special, and some of them will have special skills like higher combat or the ability to have extra suppression. We'll get into suppression here in a little bit. Or like these guys, they have command abilities or the ability to inspire. Some of them have logistics, so they'll either have L or I or C, giving them extra abilities and allowing them to allow the other soldiers to have extra dice to throw, extra suppression tokens, or even to take recovery actions. See, the big thing over here is you have a lot of troops here, but you only have 4 movements and 4 actions. So you really need to think long and hard on what you're going to do when you're taking your actions with all your troops here, because you don't have that many. And once one of you guys has taken an action that exhausts them, you're going to flip them over to their exhausted side, just like we saw in, like I said, Kesseliter and Pavlov's house. And they don't get to do anything else but recover after they've hit this exhausted state, unless there's someone who has a command ability who is in a position like these guys couldn't do it because they're in the basement. He's on the ground floor. But if they were on the same floor, they could give them a recover command, and up to 3 guys could either remove disruption or they could recover from being exhausted. You'll also notice as we're looking at it that some of these people have weapon counters in there. Now, the rest that don't doesn't mean they don't have weapons. It just means they don't have long range weapons or suppressive weapons. So some of our guys will have things like this. Was this Browning? Yep, Browning. That has an R, which means it can attack at range. The guys that are up here, especially in the upper floors, they have to have a weapon that has range to attack down from the upper floors out into the streets. The ground floor guys can attack out, but they don't have as much of a color range as these guys do. So you need to make sure they have weapons. You also notice that this says 2S on it, which gives you extra suppression, but that is where these ammo tokens come in. And as far as I know, I looked through the rulebook just to make sure I didn't read that wrong. What you got is what you got. You might want to hold on to these until you really need them. There are some extra ammo tokens here in the center and the interior. We got a few here, we got a few here, and then there are some grenades as well that can be used. But these suppression tokens will allow you to suppress a circle out here that will help slow down the assaulting forces as they're moving in. Also, like I was just saying, the guys up here at the top, they do have ranged weapons so they can shoot down at the support personnel, the German support personnel who are going to have heavy machine gun emplacements or infantry cannons, stuff like that. So you have to have one of those weapons to fire down on them. Those are the main guys. And then we have some civilians here that you see I have painted blue on their counters. And these are the ones you definitely need to make sure survive, because you can see here -3 on the morale. You really don't want to lose your non-combatants, because that is a massive, massive hit to your morale. This would be a total of 7 morale loss if you lost all 3 of those. And you can see your morale only starts at 9. So you would be way low if you lost those guys. You want to try to protect them at all costs. Neat thing is, though, you actually do have some, like these gentlemen here, who your morale goes up if they actually become casualties. The troops become more enthused to stop the German onslaught if they lose their commanders. Now, these aren't all the counters that are going to be included in the main game. I do believe there are going to be others. But something neat that I thought that they did here is these are the names of the people who actually fought there. So these are real historic people who fought in this post office trying to fend off the German attack. Really a nice fitting tribute in a way that their names, their legacy, what they fought to accomplish and save is still being remembered all these years later. All right, so let's scroll over here. We'll take a look at some of our German counters real quick, just to show them to you guys. Here is one of these square ones. The top shows you where they go. This is D with the blue and the red, which shows you that he would go there. And he's going to fire his machine gun at the upper floors of the building, trying to pick people off. The stats on them, just like over there, the 1 represents the attack value and 4 represents defense. And speaking of defense, I forgot to mention while we were here, these are your defensive counters. So they've basically boarded up the windows and barred the doors, stuff like that. This is what that represents. And as you take damage, you're going to move this shield counter down farther and farther until it's at its lowest. And when it is at its lowest, that's when your defenders can take a lot more chance of disruption and attacks coming in from the outside. So other than our heavy machine guns, we also have heavy machine guns emplaced. You see that they have higher stats, so 3 attack and 5 defense. And you're going to have these pop up. So you draw a card, placing in an emplacement. But if you have to place another one in that spot, then it becomes in place. So they're basically fortifying their position, bringing in extra ammo, extra equipment, and they're better prepared to put rounds down range. That's what that's going to represent. And we do have infantry guns. Let's see, that's in place. So these are bigger, heavier artillery coming in, and it's the same type principle that it'll start off with a lower number. See, 2 attack, 5 defense, and then 3 attack and 6 defense as these guys come out. On top of that, we have our named people, like our leaders here that are going to come in, riflemen and some machine gunners, both in the generic quantity, and then the SS guys are going to come in. You see the SSs are a little more defensive, so 1 attack, 4 defense on this guy, but the SS rifleman has 1 attack, 5 defense. So a little bit stronger. Now things are going to progress as the game goes on, because like I was saying earlier, there are multiple decks of cards in this game. You're going to have attack 1, attack 2, and attack 3. You're going to separate these out and shuffle them up before the game starts. And that had to do with, historically, the attacks did kind of come in waves. So there was one in the morning, there was one around lunchtime, and then there's one in the evening where they tried to burn it all down. So as you're playing through the game, you're going to start with attack deck 1, and you're going to play through this whole entire deck. And then once that's done, you're going to move on to 2, as long as certain conditions are met. You can't have any leader counters on the board at all, and you can't have any troops in the building. So if any troops are in the building or leader counters on the board at all, then you're going to have to reshuffle this deck and continue playing it until you've met those conditions. Once those conditions are met, then you start on deck 2. Deck 2 has similar requirements to meet before we go into deck 3. And each deck is going to get progressively harder. You're not going to have those infantry guns in deck 1 that are going to come into it in 2 and 3. So if you see your deck starting to run low, you want to try to make sure you get those troops cleared out of the building, that you pick off any leaders that might be out there, because you don't want to have to suffer extra rounds of the cards having to go through, because that's just extra attacks that you're taking that you don't need to take. So try to meet those conditions when that deck's getting ready to run out. A couple more things to show you, and then we'll start playing through the game here real quick. There are some cards that you keep out of the decks. You can tell looking at it, this is deck 1, deck 2, and deck 3. These grenade cards have to do with these barriers, okay? So once you have an enemy unit that reaches one of these barriers, that's when one of these cards, and each one of these barriers is numbered. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 on across. The grenades are numbered as well. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you have an enemy unit that reaches the barrier itself, that's when that specific card will get shuffled into the deck. And then when that card is drawn again, that's when the barrier goes down and they can start pushing in. So you want to try to keep them back from the barrier as long as you can. You do have a little bit of a reprieve once they hit it the first time, because it's going to take a sec for that card to come up. But if you get unlucky and it gets shuffled to the top, you could be drawing that card very, very soon and facing a world of hurt, especially if the units stack up against it, because they can continue coming. It's not like they hit that and stop. Units can continue to spawn and they'll just stack in that spot. And you could have a stack of enemy counters that as soon as that barrier is gone, they start pushing their way on in, and it can get really bad very quickly. Only other card you need to know about is the fire engine card. This is the one that signifies the end of the game and will be the end of the game once you draw it. You want to also keep that morale up, because depending on what your morale is where this card's going to get shuffled into that third deck. So you want to have the best possible morale so you get the best possible placement for this card. All right, but we got a couple minutes before I run out of time for this video. Let's go ahead and draw a couple of enemy cards real quick, let you guys see how this game's going to be played, and then we'll play through a few more rounds in the upcoming video so you guys can see it play out. All right, so the game itself is going to be played in the enemy phase, then the defense phase, then the clearing phase, and then escape if you're at that point. So basically, enemy, defense, and then clearing phase. And sorry if you see my hands getting black. These are the laser cut counters that do have a little soot on them. So that's where that's coming from. It's nothing bad or anything like that. So to start with, you're going to draw 5 cards one at a time, and you're going to play them in order from whatever deck that you're on. So we're going to draw 5 cards here. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And put that back together. Make sure we got 5. Yep, we got 5 cards. And we're going to play these out one at a time. So first card's going to be a machine gunner. And you see that it is the D machine gunner at red and blue. So we'll grab this counter, and he is placed right here. Okay, so we've placed our machine gunner, and he's going to roll to potentially disrupt units on the board. And he's going to target over here the highest position on the board that still has defenders in it. Now he can see dark blue and red, okay? So red and dark blue right here. Since this is the ground floor and this is the upper floor or upper floors, this is going to be where he's going to target. And you notice that they have numbers there across the top. So you're going to roll to see which one that he's targeting, figure out what defender it is, and then roll to see if he does disrupt the defender, and that's going to be compared against this number here. So let's grab our die out. We're going to roll and see which defender he's going after. Doesn't really matter. There's a defender in every spot at this point. So he got number 4. Number 4 is going to be Benzinowski right here at 3-4. Okay, which is unfortunate because that's my trained guy. Don't go after him, go after someone else. All right, now that we know who he's attacking, we're rolling here, and we're hoping for a number that's not a 5 or a 6 because he's trying to meet or beat that defensive number. So roll low, baby. 4, that's what I'm talking about. No disruption. Yay. Now, had he disrupted, we would have placed one of our disruption counters on him. This would prevent him from taking actions and doing stuff. And it also requires a recover action to remove one of these disruptions. All right, so we'll take this card and we'll set it to the side. And we will go to our next one. Also a machine gunner. Hey, lovely. Okay, so this one's going to C. C is right here. And he can target white and what is that, gray? Something like that. Which is over here, this edge of the building. So since he can target here or here, he's going to be aiming for one of these two guys here. So 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 is going to determine. He's going to go for the highest one. So it'll be one of these two. Hopefully it'll be a 4 to 6 because I don't want him hitting that guy. And oh, by the way, these are my double 6 dice. These did not come with a prototype. I'm just using these because I like them better than the little cheap D6s. So let's roll, see which one he's going to target. And he got a 2, so of course he's targeting the guy that I don't want him to. Oh, that's a suppression guy. I was one to put out some suppression. Oh, and he got him with a disrupt. So we will mark him as such disrupted. That's some garbage. That's going to cost me an action that I didn't want to have to spend to undisrupt him because he's the guy that can put out suppression tokens, and I really need a lot of suppression tokens out here to slow these guys down. All right, so next card is going to be a submachine gunner, one of the blue ones. He's going to go in one of these spaces. You see blue and white. We're going to roll 1 to 6 to determine which one he's going in. He got a 5, so he's going to go right here, okay? If we place another counter, he will move up. That's how that's going to work. So we'll place him over in our discard. We got 2 more cards to go. We have Goertz, the leader. And you notice he says place 1 to 2 blue, remove card from game. So he's going to go right here. And his card gets removed. So once you place the leader, that's it. Leader, no comeback. Regular troops, they got plenty. Leaders, not so many. So make sure you put that card off to the side. He's going to move and attack just like other troops are, though. Remember, we can't end phase 1 as long as a leader's on the board. So picking him off is a key idea. We got 1 card left, and it's a rifleman. We will roll to see where he's going to be placed. Hopefully nothing bad. It'd be good if he went to like 3-4. Yep, 3-4, perfect. Spread out. That's what I need them doing. So there you got one here, here, and here. All right, so at the end of the first enemy phase, it was not horribly bad. They spread out, which is actually a good thing. We only took 1 disruption from 2 support emplacements being placed down. But like I said, those support emplacements can get very bad very quickly. If we draw another card for this spot, it becomes in place, and it's going to be even harder to get rid of it. Now, we'll show it my turn in the next video. But I was wanting to use some of those suppression tokens to try to slow some of these guys down so they couldn't come in this direction. But we're going to have to figure something else out. I might have to waste an action doing a recover to try to get him on the next go round. Anyway, you guys feel free to put your questions down below. Any comments? I know David's going to take and watch this video and see it at some point, so he'll jump in. And if he doesn't, I'll jump in as well. Anything you guys want to know about the game, feel free to ask. I will see if I can find out for you. Anyway, y'all take care. I'll see you in the next one.